Little girl to millionaire. Don't get in your Mustang. Your fiancé cut the brakes. He calls 911. Before we dive into this incredible story of survival, courage, and unexpected family bonds, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. This tale will touch your heart in ways you never imagined. Enjoy the story. The October wind cut through Seattle like a knife, carrying the promise of an unforgiving winter. 6-year-old Lily Parker pressed her small frame against the cold brick wall, her breath forming tiny clouds in the frigid air. 3 months had passed since Grandma Rose's funeral, 3 months since her world collapsed entirely. The social workers had come twice already, their kind but persistent voices echoing through her mind. "Lily, you can't live alone. We need to find you a safe place." But Lily remembered what happened to Tommy from down the hall when they took him away. He never came back to visit Mrs. Chen like he promised. As darkness fell over the wealthy Magnolia neighborhood, Lily's desperate eyes found salvation. The Wilson Mansion's garage glowed with warm, inviting light. Unlike the other houses she'd passed, this one had something magical. Heat radiating from inside, protecting expensive cars from Seattle's brutal weather. Ryan Wilson, 42 and founder of Wilson Tech, was meticulously polishing his prized 1967 Mustang Shelby GT500. Tomorrow marked another milestone in his carefully planned life, finalizing wedding preparations with Rebecca Sinclair, the stunning financial consultant who'd swept him off his feet 8 months ago at a charity gala. "Just you and me tomorrow, old friend," he whispered to the Mustang, unaware that small, desperate eyes watched from the shadows outside. When Ryan finally left, securing the garage with electronic precision, Lily slipped through a loose panel she'd discovered earlier. Behind towering equipment boxes, she created a tiny sanctuary, invisible, warm, and safe. As she curled up on a piece of cardboard, clutching her grandmother's worn photograph, Lily whispered the prayer Grandma Rose had taught her. "Please keep me safe until morning." She had no idea she'd just chosen the hiding spot that would change everything. But in the darkness outside, someone else was watching the Wilson Mansion with very different intentions. The next morning arrived with golden sunlight streaming through the garage's high windows. Lily had barely slept, every sound making her heart race. But as warmth filled her makeshift sanctuary, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: safety. The electronic garage door hummed to life, and Ryan Wilson stepped inside, his expensive cologne mixing with the scent of leather and motor oil. Behind him glided Rebecca Sinclair, her designer heels clicking against the polished concrete floor. "Darling, show me this mysterious wedding surprise you've been hiding," Rebecca purred, though her smile seemed practiced rather than genuine. Hidden behind the equipment boxes, Lily watched as Ryan's face lit up with boyish excitement. He led Rebecca to a car covered by a pristine white sheet. "Something old for our special day," he announced, pulling away the covering with theatrical flair. The restored Mustang gleamed like liquid fire under the lights. Rebecca's expression flickered, just for a moment, from forced enthusiasm to calculating assessment. "It's valuable, isn't it?" she asked, running her manicured fingers along the hood. "Priceless to me," Ryan replied, missing the distinction entirely. "My dad and I rebuilt the engine when I was 12. After the ceremony, we'll take her for a ride along the coast." From her hiding spot, Lily watched Rebecca's reflection in the car's chrome. The woman's smile never reached her eyes, and something about her reminded Lily of the mean lady at the grocery store, who always watched children suspiciously. But Ryan was different. The way he spoke to his cars, gentle and loving, reminded her of how Grandma Rose used to talk to her plants. "You've been patient, haven't you, beautiful?" he whispered to the Mustang, polishing an already perfect surface. After they left, Lily established her routine. During daylight hours, she remained perfectly still, practicing the hiding games Grandma Rose had taught her during their rare visits to the park. Only when darkness fell did she venture out, slipping into the mansion's outdoor kitchen to find scraps. Always careful to take just enough to survive, never enough to be noticed. But on her third night, As she nibbled on leftover bread, she heard Rebecca's voice through the kitchen window, sharp and angry on a phone call. The timeline hasn't changed, Marcus. Right after the honeymoon. Lily froze. Something in that tone made her think of the scary movies Grandma Rose never let her watch. By her 5th day in the garage, Lily had grown bold enough to explore during the quiet afternoon hours when Ryan worked in his home office. She'd discovered that the garage's ventilation system carried voices from throughout the house, turning her hiding spot into an unintentional listening post. That night, sleep eluded her completely. At midnight, the garage door's quiet hum jolted her awake. Rebecca slipped inside alone, believing herself unobserved, her phone pressed against her ear. The policy was approved today, Marcus. $50 million. Rebecca's voice carried a coldness that made Lily shiver despite the warmth. We just need to follow through with the plan after the ceremony. Lily didn't understand words like policy or approved, but she understood danger. The tone reminded her of the time she'd overheard the landlord threatening to evict them before Grandma Rose got sick. Stop worrying about details, Rebecca continued, pacing near the Mustang. Ryan insists on driving this ridiculous car after the reception. It's absolutely perfect timing. When Rebecca finally left, Lily remained frozen behind her boxes, her 6-year-old mind struggling to process what she'd heard. The next morning brought another disturbing scene. Through the garage's side window, Lily watched Rebecca in Ryan's office while he stepped outside to take a business call. The woman moved with purpose, photographing documents on his desk with her phone, her movements quick and furtive. When Ryan returned with coffee for both of them, Rebecca was sitting innocently, her radiant smile firmly in place. You're amazing for handling all these last-minute details, sweetheart, Ryan said, kissing her forehead. Anything for our future together, Rebecca replied, her fingers trailing possessively over the papers she'd just been photographing. From her hiding spot, Lily watched this performance with growing unease. Grandma Rose had always told her to trust her feelings about people. Your heart knows things your head hasn't figured out yet, little bird, she used to say. And right now, Lily's heart was screaming warnings about the woman Ryan planned to marry. That evening, as Lily carefully collected rainwater in a small container she'd found, she overheard Rebecca making another late-night call. 3 days, Marcus. 3 more days and everything changes. The certainty in Rebecca's voice sent ice through Lily's veins. Whatever was going to happen in 3 days, Ryan's wedding day, she knew it would be terrible. But who would believe a homeless 6-year-old hiding in a stranger's garage? 3 days before the wedding, Lily was carefully eating crackers she'd found in the outdoor kitchen when the garage door opened silently at 2 a.m. Her heart hammered as Rebecca entered with a tall, thin man wearing dark clothing. Marcus, Rebecca whispered, her voice carrying deadly satisfaction. Everything's falling into place perfectly. Lily pressed herself deeper into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe as the strangers moved closer to Ryan's beloved Mustang. Ryan insists on driving this damn car after the reception, Rebecca explained, running her hand along the hood with mock affection. He wants to take it for a romantic drive along Pacific Highway, the curve near Sunset Point. You know the one that overlooks the cliff. Marcus nodded grimly. Sharp turn, steep drop. But what if someone suspects? Who would suspect anything? Rebecca's laugh was cold as winter rain. A $50 million life insurance policy covering accidents, a vintage car with mechanical failure, tragic newlywed accident, the media will eat it up. Lily's small hands clenched into fists. Even at 6, she understood death. She'd watched Grandma Rose grow weaker and weaker until the machine stopped beeping. But this was different. This was murder. The brake lines, Marcus continued, pulling tools from a black bag. We cut them partially, not completely. They'll hold for normal driving around town, but the moment he hits those brakes hard on that steep curve, boom, Rebecca finished with satisfaction. I tested the route yesterday. Ryan plans to take the car for one last test drive tomorrow before the wedding rehearsal. That curve doesn't forgive mistakes. Horror filled Lily's chest as she watched Marcus crouch beside the Mustang's front wheel. These people were going to hurt Ryan, kind Ryan, who talked sweetly to his cars and brought Rebecca coffee every morning. A small wrench slipped from Marcus's hand, clanging against the concrete. Both conspirators froze. "What was that?" Marcus hissed. Rebecca listened intently, then shrugged. "Probably one of the gardener's cats. They get into everything." As Marcus resumed his deadly work, cutting brake lines with surgical precision, Lily bit her lip to keep from crying out. She thought of Grandma Rose's voice. "Sometimes, little bird, doing the right thing means being braver than you've ever been." But how could someone so small stop something so terrible? When they finally left, Lily crept toward the Mustang on trembling legs. Even in the dim light, she could see the damage. Fluid pooling beneath the car like dark tears. Tomorrow, Ryan would take his final test drive. Unable to escape without being seen, Lily remained frozen in her hiding spot as Rebecca and Marcus methodically destroyed Ryan's cherished Mustang. The precision of their work terrified her. This wasn't random vandalism, but calculated murder. "Hand me the smaller cutter," Rebecca whispered, displaying surprising mechanical knowledge as she pointed to specific brake lines. "We need to weaken this section just enough. When he presses hard on the brakes going downhill." Marcus worked with the skill of someone who'd done this before. "The fluid will drain slowly at first, then completely fail under pressure. It'll look like old equipment giving out." Lily watched in horrified fascination as they drained brake fluid into containers, then carefully cleaned up every trace of their presence. These weren't amateurs. They moved like ghosts, leaving no evidence except the invisible death trap they'd created. "I tested the route yesterday," Rebecca continued, her voice filled with anticipation. "Ryan mentioned he wants to take it up to Mount Rainier tomorrow morning, then down Pacific Highway before picking up his best man at the airport. That stretch past Sunset Point has claimed 3 cars in the past decade." "What about the wedding?" Marcus asked, sealing the brake fluid containers. Rebecca's smile was predatory. "I'll be the devastated widow before I'm even technically a wife. The sympathy will be overwhelming. Local news loves tragic stories. Successful businessman dies in vintage car accident the day before his wedding." When they finished, the Mustang looked exactly the same from the outside. Only someone checking underneath would notice the carefully orchestrated sabotage. "Beautiful work," Rebecca said, running her hand lovingly along the car's hood one final time. "Ryan always said this car was his pride and joy. How poetic that it'll be his coffin." After they left, Lily crept toward the Mustang on shaking legs. Underneath, she could see where fluid had dripped, not much, but enough. She remembered watching mechanics work on cars near their old apartment. Remembered Grandma Rose explaining how brakes kept cars from crashing. The smell of brake fluid filled her nostrils, sharp and chemical. She touched the puddle with her finger, then immediately wiped it on her already dirty clothes, afraid it might be dangerous. Looking up at the magnificent red car, Lily whispered, "I'm sorry they hurt you." But tomorrow morning, Ryan would climb into this beautiful death trap, completely unaware that his fiancée had just signed his death warrant. And Lily was the only person in the world who knew the truth. Dawn broke over Seattle with cruel beauty, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Lily hadn't slept at all, her mind racing with impossible choices. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's kind face and heard Grandma Rose's voice. "Doing the right thing is rarely doing the easy thing, little bird." But what was the right thing for a homeless 6-year-old who'd been hiding illegally in a stranger's garage? Through the windows, she watched Ryan and Rebecca having breakfast on the terrace. Rebecca played her part perfectly, the loving fiancée feeding him strawberries, laughing at his jokes, adjusting his tie with tender care. The performance was flawless, and it made Lily's stomach turn. "I can't wait to start our life together," Rebecca said, her voice carrying clearly through the morning air. "After your little joyride in that car today, we'll be inseparable." Ryan checked his watch. "Just a quick test drive to make sure everything's perfect. Then I'll pick up David from the airport. He's been dying to see the Mustang since I told him about the restoration." Lily's heart hammered. Ryan planned to test the car in exactly 1 hour. David, his best man, would be waiting at the airport, but Ryan would never arrive. Instead, he'd be lying broken at the bottom of Sunset Point Cliff while Rebecca played the grieving widow. The weight of knowledge pressed down on her small shoulders like a mountain. She thought about the social workers, about being taken away to strangers, about the group home Tommy had described in whispered, fearful words. Everything in her 6-year-old world screamed, "Run and hide." But then she remembered Ryan's gentle voice talking to his cars, the way he'd unknowingly provided her with warmth and shelter when she had nowhere else to go. He'd never even met her, but his kindness had saved her life. Could she really let him die to protect herself? Through the garage window, she watched Ryan kiss Rebecca goodbye and start walking toward the garage, keys jingling in his hand. His face glowed with anticipation. He genuinely loved that car, loved his fiancée, loved his carefully planned life. A life that would end in 15 minutes if Lily stayed hidden. With a courage that would have made Grandma Rose proud, Lily made her choice. She couldn't save herself and let Ryan die. Some things mattered more than being safe. Taking a deep breath that tasted like motor oil and morning air, she stepped out from behind the equipment boxes for the first time in over a week. Ryan Wilson said goodbye to Rebecca with a tender kiss and walked toward the garage, spinning his keys around his finger like a man without a care in the world. The morning sun caught the metal, creating tiny rainbows that danced across the pristine driveway. Gathering every ounce of courage her small body possessed, Lily burst from the side garden and ran across the manicured lawn, her bare feet slipping on the dew-soaked grass. "Sir, don't get in your car," she screamed, her thin voice cutting through the peaceful morning air like a siren. "The pretty lady broke it last night." Ryan froze mid-step, completely stunned by the apparition racing toward him. A tiny girl with tangled hair, wearing clothes that had seen better days, her eyes wide with desperate urgency. On the terrace, Rebecca's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, shattering against the white marble with a sound like breaking bones. Dark liquid spread across the stone like spilled blood. "Don't drive the red car, they want to hurt you," Lily continued, stopping just out of arm's reach but pointing directly at Rebecca, who was now rushing down the terrace steps with alarm painted across her features. "Darling, who is this child?" Rebecca's voice carried perfect concern, but her eyes blazed with barely contained fury. "We need to call security immediately. She's obviously been living on the streets." Ryan's business instincts, honed by years of reading people and situations, kicked into high gear. The child's terror was genuine. No 6-year-old could fake that level of fear. But more disturbing was something in Rebecca's reaction, a flash of panic before the concerned mask fell into place. "They cut the lines under your pretty car," Lily continued, her voice shaking but determined. "The man with dark clothes and the lady with sharp fingernails. They said you'd crash at the scary curve." "This is ridiculous," Rebecca snapped, her composure cracking slightly. "Ryan, she's obviously mentally unstable. We need to call the authorities and have her removed from the property." But Ryan was studying Lily's face, seeing something that made his blood run cold. This wasn't the rambling of a disturbed child. This was testimony delivered with the precision of someone who'd witnessed something horrific. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked gently, ignoring Rebecca's increasingly frantic protests. "Lily Parker," she whispered. "And I've been living in your garage because it's warm and safe. But your car isn't safe anymore. Please don't drive it." Ryan pulled out his phone with steady hands. "I'm calling 911, he announced, his voice calm but deadly serious. "I want both police and a mechanic here immediately." Rebecca's face went white as winter snow. "They broke your red car to make you crash," Lily insisted, maintaining her distance while pointing an accusatory finger at Rebecca, who approached with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Sweetheart, someone clearly needs to call Child Protective Services," Rebecca said, her voice dripping with false concern. "This poor little thing has obviously been living rough. She's probably hallucinating from hunger and exposure." Ryan noticed how Rebecca positioned herself between him and the garage, blocking his path to the Mustang. Her body language spoke volumes. Protective, defensive, almost territorial. "Ryan, we can't take the word of a homeless child who's been trespassing on our property," Rebecca continued, her tone becoming more urgent. "She could be mentally ill or making up stories for attention. But Lily stood her ground, trembling yet determined. I saw them with the tools. The scary man called Marcus and the pretty lady who pretends to love you. They said $50 million when you die. The specificity of that number hit Ryan like a physical blow. His life insurance policy, information that only Rebecca and his lawyer knew, his instincts, which had built a tech empire from nothing, screamed danger. I'm calling 911, he repeated, his thumb already dialing. We'll let the professionals sort this out. Ryan, please. Rebecca's mask slipped further, revealing something desperate underneath. You're really going to trust some vagrant child over your own fiancé, after everything we've built together? If there's nothing wrong with the car, then there's no harm in having it checked, Ryan replied with businessman's logic, the phone already ringing on the other end. Rebecca's face cycled through emotions, panic, anger, calculation. You're embarrassing us both. What will people think when they hear you called the police because a homeless child told you ghost stories? But Ryan was already speaking to the dispatcher. I need police and a certified mechanic at 1247 Magnolia Drive immediately. I have reason to believe my vehicle has been sabotaged. The color drained from Rebecca's face like water down a drain. In that moment, Lily saw something that terrified her more than hunger or cold ever had, the look of a cornered predator realizing the hunt had gone wrong. You'll regret this, Ryan, Rebecca whispered so quietly that only Lily caught the words. Both of you. As sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer with each passing second, Lily pressed closer to Ryan's protective presence, sensing that the real danger was just beginning. While they waited for emergency responders, Lily's adrenaline finally began to fade, leaving her shaking like a leaf in an autumn storm. The magnitude of what she'd done, revealing herself after hiding for nearly 2 weeks, crashed over her in waves. I was so cold outside, she whispered to Ryan, expecting punishment. Your garage was warm and safe. I didn't take much food, I promise. Instead of anger, Ryan's expression softened with something Lily had rarely seen, genuine compassion. Maria, he called to his housekeeper, please bring hot chocolate and a blanket. Rebecca watched this exchange with barely concealed fury. Ryan, you're encouraging a criminal. She's been stealing from us, trespassing on private property. We should press charges. She's 6 years old, Ryan replied firmly, his protective instincts fully engaged. The police arrived within minutes, followed by Tom Bradley, a certified mechanic Ryan had specifically requested. Detective Sarah Peterson, a sharp-eyed woman, in her 40s, took immediate control of the scene. Let's start with the vehicle inspection, she announced, directing the mechanic toward the Mustang. Rebecca made one final desperate play. Detective, this child is clearly disturbed. She's been living illegally on our property, probably stealing food and... Ma'am, I'll need to speak with everyone individually, Detective Peterson interrupted. But first, let's see what Mr. Bradley finds. The mechanic's examination took less than 10 minutes. When he emerged from beneath the Mustang, his face was grim. Brake lines have been deliberately severed, he announced. Professional job, designed to fail under heavy braking conditions. This car would have been a death trap. The silence that followed was deafening. There's more, Detective Peterson added, consulting her tablet. Mr. Wilson, your exterior security. Cameras were disabled yesterday evening, but the garage cameras remained operational. We'll need to review that footage immediately. Rebecca's face went from pale to ashen. This is ridiculous. You're going to take the word of a homeless child and jump to these outrageous conclusions? But Ryan was no longer listening to her protests. He was staring at the woman he'd planned to marry, seeing a stranger where his fiancée used to be. Detective Peterson, he said quietly, I think you're going to find that footage very interesting. Rebecca took an involuntary step backward, her perfect composure finally cracking completely. The garage security footage played on Detective Peterson's tablet with devastating clarity. Rebecca and Marcus moved through the frames like actors in a noir film, their sabotage captured in high-definition detail. That's impossible, Rebecca stammered, but her voice lacked conviction. Those cameras were supposed to be... She caught herself, but too late. Supposed to be what, Ms. Sinclair? Detective Peterson asked, her pen poised over her notepad. Realizing her mistake, Rebecca made a desperate break for the door. 2 officers intercepted her before she reached the driveway, her designer heels skidding on the polished concrete as she struggled against their grip. "You don't understand," she shrieked, her composure completely shattered. "I deserved everything he had. Do you know what I went through to get this close to him?" Ryan stood frozen, watching the woman he'd planned to marry transform into someone utterly unrecognizable. The gentle fiancée who brought him morning coffee had vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. "Mrs. Sinclair," Detective Peterson continued, "or should I say Ms. Reed?" Rebecca's struggles ceased instantly. "How did you—" "Vanessa Reed," Peterson explained to Ryan, who looked completely bewildered. "Wanted for questioning in connection with the suspicious death of Portland businessman James Morrison 3 years ago. Your fiancé has quite an interesting background." The revelations kept coming like hammer blows. James Morrison died in a convenient car accident just 6 months after marrying Ms. Reed. She collected $2 million in life insurance before disappearing. Lily pressed closer to Ryan, overwhelmed by the adult drama unfolding around her. She'd saved Ryan's life, but the woman who'd tried to kill him was staring directly at her with pure hatred. "You little brat," Rebecca snarled, her mask completely gone. "You have no idea what you've cost me. Years of planning, months of playing the perfect girlfriend, all ruined by some homeless pest." Detective Peterson stepped between them protectively. "Ms. Reed, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. We'll also be reopening the Morrison case." As the officers led Rebecca away, she twisted back toward Ryan one final time. "You were never good enough for me anyway," she spat. "Just another lonely rich man desperate to be loved." The garage fell silent except for the distant sound of police cars driving away. Ryan sank onto a nearby stool, the weight of betrayal, and near death settling over him like a heavy blanket. Lily approached cautiously, her small hand touching his arm. "I'm sorry the pretty lady was mean to you," she whispered. Ryan looked down at the brave little girl who'd saved his life, and for the first time in hours, he managed a genuine smile. In the days following Rebecca's arrest, the story exploded across Seattle's media landscape. Tech billionaire saved by homeless child dominated headlines, but Ryan canceled all interviews and public appearances. His priority wasn't managing public relations, it was ensuring Lily's safety and well-being. The mansion, once sterile and designed for impressing business associates, began transforming. Where minimalist furniture had created cold, perfect spaces, Ryan found himself adding warmth, soft blankets, books with colorful pictures, and a small table where Lily could eat meals without feeling lost in the vastness. "I've never had pancakes that weren't from a box," Lily admitted on her 3rd morning, syrup coating her chin as she attacked the stack Maria had prepared. Ryan watched her eat with fascination. His carefully controlled life had operated like clockwork for years: board meetings, profit margins, strategic planning. Now he found himself learning the chaos of childhood. Questions that began before he'd finished his coffee, small hands that left fingerprints on every glass surface, and the constant background noise of someone who viewed the world with wonder instead of calculation. The investigation revealed Lily's tragic circumstances. Orphaned when her grandmother Rose died 3 months earlier, she'd been evading social services out of fear. Her grandmother had briefly lost custody years before due to a bureaucratic mix-up, leaving 6-year-old Lily terrified of being separated from the only family she'd ever known. The state has located a distant cousin in Florida, caseworker Helen Martinez explained during a meeting in Ryan's study. Marcus Parker expressed interest in taking custody. Ryan's protective instincts flared immediately. Has this man been vetted? Does he have experience with children? He's passed initial background checks, Martinez replied carefully. But we always prefer family placement when possible. That evening, Ryan found Lily in the guest room, carefully folding her few possessions into the same plastic bag she'd carried when hiding in his garage. "You don't have to pack yet," he said gently, sitting on the bed's edge. "The social worker said it would be several weeks before any decisions are made." Lily looked up with eyes far too old for her 6-year-old face. It's okay, Mr. Ryan. I already knew I couldn't stay. Nobody keeps me for very long. The resignation in her voice broke something inside Ryan's chest. This brave little girl, who'd risked everything to save a stranger's life, had learned to expect abandonment as naturally as breathing. Lily, he said carefully, what if there was another option? What if I applied to become your guardian? Her eyes widened with hope and disbelief. You'd want to keep me? Even though I hid in your garage and ate your food? Especially because you were brave enough to save my life, Ryan replied, surprised by the certainty in his own voice. If you'd like to stay here, I'd like you to stay too. For the first time since he'd known her, Lily smiled. Really smiled. And Ryan realized his carefully planned life had just taken the most important detour of his 42 years. 2 weeks after Rebecca's arrest, the full scope of her deception began unraveling like a carefully woven tapestry pulled apart thread by thread. Detective Peterson visited the mansion on a gray Thursday morning, her expression grim as she spread files across Ryan's dining room table. What we've discovered about Vanessa Reed is disturbing, she began, opening a thick folder. The Portland case was just the beginning. We've identified a pattern spanning nearly 8 years. Ryan studied the photographs and documents while Lily colored nearby, her presence a constant reminder of how close he'd come to becoming another statistic. The evidence painted a chilling picture of calculated predation. 3 relationships with wealthy men, Peterson continued. James Morrison in Portland died in a car accident 6 months after marriage. David Chen in San Francisco fell from his yacht during what appeared to be a romantic evening cruise. Thomas Brennan in Denver barely escaped when his sister grew suspicious and hired a private investigator. Each case followed an identical pattern. Vanessa would meet her targets at charity events or upscale social gatherings, present herself as a successful professional, pursue a whirlwind romance, and push for quick engagement. The deaths, when they occurred, always appeared accidental and happened after substantial life insurance policies had been established. The scary part, Peterson added, is how thoroughly she researched each target. She knew their business, histories, their family situations, their vulnerabilities. This wasn't random, these men were carefully selected. Ryan felt a chill remembering how perfectly Rebecca had seemed to understand his interests, his loneliness, his desire for family. Every conversation, every shared moment, every intimate detail had been calculated manipulation. The media attention intensified as the investigation expanded. News vans lined Magnolia Drive. Reporters shouted questions whenever Ryan left the eye. House and social media buzzed with speculation about the Black Widow of the Pacific Northwest. Ryan hired security and had his attorney issue statements, but the circus continued. More troubling than public scrutiny was the private shame eating away at Ryan's confidence. How had someone so successful in business, someone who built a tech empire through reading people and situations, been so completely fooled? I pride myself on understanding human nature, he confided to his longtime friend and attorney, David Patterson, during a late-night conversation in his study. I've negotiated million-dollar deals, spotted corporate espionage, identified dishonest competitors. How did I miss something this obvious? David, who'd flown in from New York immediately after hearing the news, poured himself another scotch. Because she was a professional, Ryan. This was her career. You were looking for love, not analyzing a business adversary. The psychological impact extended beyond wounded pride. Ryan found himself questioning every interaction, every decision, every instinct that had once seemed reliable. Sleep became elusive as his mind replayed moments with Rebecca, searching for signs he'd missed, warnings he'd ignored. Meanwhile, Lily adapted to mansion life with the resilience of childhood, but her own trauma surfaced in unexpected ways. She hoarded food in her room, checked locks repeatedly before sleeping, and sometimes woke screaming from nightmares about the pretty lady coming back. She was so angry when they took her away, Lily whispered during one of these midnight episodes, clinging to Ryan as he comforted her. What if she gets out of jail and tries to hurt us? These fears weren't entirely unfounded. Rebecca's attorney had requested bail, arguing that his client posed no flight risk. The hearing was scheduled for the following week, and the possibility of her temporary release, however remote, added another layer of anxiety to an already stressful situation. The custody situation grew more complex as well. Marcus Parker, the Florida cousin, had begun calling regularly and expressing increased interest in taking Lily. During their video calls, he seemed pleasant enough, a middle-aged construction worker with no children of his own. But something about his sudden enthusiasm struck Ryan as opportunistic. The publicity has been substantial, social worker Helen Martinez observed during another meeting. A lot of people are suddenly interested in Lily's welfare. The implication was clear. Some of that interest might be motivated by potential book deals, movie rights, or simple fame rather than genuine concern for a traumatized child. As Ryan tucked Lily into bed one evening, she looked up at him with those wise, worried eyes. "Mr. Ryan, if the scary lady gets out of jail, will you still want to keep me? Even if it's dangerous?" The question cut straight to his heart. Was he being selfish, trying to adopt Lily? Would she be safer with relatives far from Seattle, away from the media attention and the lingering shadow of Rebecca's threats? But looking at this brave little girl who'd risked everything to save his life, Ryan knew his answer with absolute certainty. "Lily, nothing in this world could make me stop wanting you and my family. We'll face whatever comes together." Outside, rain began pelting the windows like tiny fists, and somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed through the Seattle night. 1 month after Rebecca's arrest, Marcus Hoffman was released on bail due to a procedural error in his arrest warrant. His lawyer had successfully argued that evidence obtained during the initial search was inadmissible, creating enough reasonable doubt to secure his temporary freedom while awaiting trial. The news hit Ryan like a physical blow when Detective Peterson called at 6 a.m. on a stormy Tuesday morning. "We've assigned additional patrol units to your neighborhood," she assured him. "But Hoffman is legally required to stay away from you and Lily. He's wearing an ankle monitor and can't leave King County without permission." Ryan knew that legal requirements meant little to desperate criminals. Marcus had watched his entire future crumble because of Lily's testimony. Desperate people did desperate things, a lesson Ryan had learned all too well. The mansion's security system received immediate upgrades: motion sensors, reinforced locks, panic buttons in every room, and 24-hour monitoring. Ryan hired private security guards who rotated shifts, ensuring the property was never unprotected. But Marcus proved more cunning than anyone anticipated. The storm that Tuesday night was particularly fierce, with winds strong enough to knock out power lines across Seattle. The mansion's backup generators kicked in automatically, but the electrical disruption temporarily disabled several exterior security cameras, a window of opportunity Marcus had apparently been waiting for. Ryan and Lily were awakened at 2 a.m. by the soft chime of their security system's intrusion alert. Ryan's phone displayed a silent alarm indicating motion in the lower level, but the affected cameras showed only static. "Stay close to me," Ryan whispered to Lily, who was already trembling at his side. They'd practiced this scenario multiple times, but facing real danger felt entirely different. Moving carefully through the dark hallway, Ryan guided them toward the safe room he'd had installed, a reinforced space with independent communication systems and supplies to last days, if necessary. But as they reached the staircase, they heard the unmistakable sound of someone moving through the house below. Marcus's voice echoed from the main floor, distorted by rage and desperation. "I know you're here, you little brat. You and your rich boyfriend destroyed everything." Ryan's security training kicked in. The panic button in his pocket would summon police immediately, but response time in this storm could be 15 minutes or more. The safe room was their best option, but reaching it required crossing an exposed area where Marcus might see them. "I've got nothing left to lose now," Marcus shouted, his voice getting closer. "Rebecca's locked up, my life is ruined, and it's all because some homeless kid couldn't mind her own business." Lily pressed against Ryan's side, her small body shaking with terror. But when she spoke, her voice carried surprising steadiness. "Mr. Ryan, I know another way." During her weeks exploring the mansion, Lily had discovered passages and spaces that even Ryan didn't know about. Behind a bookshelf in the upstairs library was a narrow maintenance corridor that connected to unused servants' quarters from the house's original construction. "It's really small," she whispered, "but we can hide there until the police come." Trusting her completely, Ryan followed Lily's lead through the hidden passage. The space was cramped and dusty, clearly unused for decades, but it was invisible to anyone who didn't know it existed. They could hear Marcus moving through the house systematically, checking rooms, growing increasingly frustrated. Glass broke somewhere downstairs, probably a vase or picture frame thrown in anger. "They've got to be here somewhere," he muttered, his voice carrying up through the old walls. The cars are in the garage, the security lights are on. The ankle monitor that was supposed to track Marcus apparently hadn't prevented him from reaching the mansion. Either he'd found a way to disable it, or the storm was interfering with the signal. For 20 agonizing minutes, they waited in the narrow space while Marcus searched the house. Lily remained remarkably calm, her survival instincts honed by months of hiding. She showed Ryan how to position himself to avoid creaking floorboards, how to control his breathing to minimize noise. "You're very brave," Ryan whispered, marveling at this child who'd already survived more trauma than most adults ever faced. "Grandma Rose always said scared and brave aren't opposites," Lily replied softly. "You can be both at the same time." Finally, they heard sirens approaching through the storm. Red and blue lights flashed through the hidden room's tiny window as police vehicles surrounded the mansion. Marcus's voice turned desperate. "This isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over." There was a crash, followed by shouting, then the distinctive sound of a struggle. Heavy footsteps moved through the house, this time accompanied by police radios and authoritative voices. "Clear upstairs," someone called out. "Suspect in custody," came another voice, when Detective Peterson's familiar voice called their names. Through the mansion's intercom system, Ryan and Lily finally emerged from their hiding place. They found Marcus handcuffed in the main foyer, his ankle monitor clearly visible and clearly still functioning. "How did he get past the security perimeter?" Ryan demanded. Peterson's expression was grim. "He used the storm surge to approach from the water side, came up through your private beach access during the worst of the weather. We didn't think anyone would be crazy enough to attempt it in these conditions." But Marcus had been exactly that crazy, desperate enough to risk everything for revenge against a 6-year-old child who'd simply tried to save an innocent man's life. As they led Marcus away, this time with additional charges including breaking and entering, stalking, and violating bail conditions, he twisted back toward Lily one final time. "You should have minded your own business, kid," he snarled. "Some secrets are worth killing for." Ryan pulled Lily closer, both of them understanding that while this immediate threat was over, the trauma would linger. But they'd faced it together, and somehow that made all the difference. In the morning, Detective Peterson would tell them that Marcus's bail had been permanently revoked and that he'd likely face federal charges for the ankle monitor violation. The immediate danger was over, but for now, as storm winds howled outside and emergency vehicles departed, Ryan and Lily sat together in the library, both grateful to be alive and safe, and both understanding more clearly than ever that they needed each other. 4 months after that terrifying night in the hidden passage, Lily faced her greatest challenge yet, testifying in court against Rebecca and Marcus. The King County Courthouse loomed like a fortress of marble and glass, its imposing architecture designed to inspire respect for justice. But to a 7-year-old girl, it felt more like a mountain to climb. Ryan had spent weeks preparing her for this moment, working with victim advocates and child psychologists to ensure she understood what would happen. They'd practiced in mock courtrooms, role-played with friendly attorneys, and discussed how telling the truth, even when it was scary, was the most important thing she could do. "Remember, Lily," Prosecutor Amanda Chen explained during their final preparation session, "you just need to tell what you saw and heard. Don't worry about anything else. Mr. Ryan will be right there in the courtroom, and I'll be asking the questions." But knowing what to expect and actually facing it were entirely different experiences. The courtroom was packed with reporters, legal observers, and spectators drawn by the sensational nature of the case. Rebecca sat at the defendant's table wearing a conservative blue dress and pearl earrings, looking every inch the respectable businesswoman rather than the calculating killer she'd proven to be. Her transformation was so complete that Lily had to look twice to recognize the woman who'd sabotaged Ryan's car. Marcus, facing charges in a separate but related trial, would testify later as part of a plea agreement. His lawyer had negotiated reduced charges in exchange for his complete cooperation, a development that had added another layer of complexity to an already intricate case. When Lily's name was called, the courtroom fell silent. Ryan squeezed her hand as she walked toward the witness stand, her small figure dwarfed by the formal proceedings around her. The bailiff had to adjust the microphone down to her height, and the judge spoke in gentle tones that seemed almost out of place in the austere setting. "Lily, do you understand that you're here to tell the truth about what you saw and heard?" Judge Margaret Thompson asked kindly. "Yes, ma'am," Lily replied, her voice barely audible despite the microphone's amplification. Prosecutor Chen began with simple questions about Lily's background, establishing how she'd come to be living in Ryan's garage. Lily's answers were clear and honest, describing her grandmother's death, her fear of foster care, and her desperate search for shelter during Seattle's harsh autumn weather. "And what did you hear on the night of October 15th? Chen continued. Lily's voice grew stronger as she recounted the conversation between Rebecca and Marcus. The pretty lady said $50 million when Mr. Ryan died. She said the car would crash at the scary curve and it would look like an accident. Rebecca's attorney, a sharp-dressed man named Robert Mitchell, objected frequently, arguing that a child's testimony was unreliable. But Judge Thompson overruled most objections, noting that Lily's account had been corroborated by physical evidence and security footage. The most difficult moment came when Mitchell cross-examined Lily, attempting to confuse her about dates and times, suggesting she might have misunderstood what she heard. "Isn't it possible, Lily, that you were hungry and scared and maybe imagined some of these conversations?" he asked with practiced gentleness that carried an edge of condescension. "No, sir," Lily replied firmly. "I know what I heard. They wanted to hurt Mr. Ryan, and that was wrong." Her simple moral clarity cut through the legal complexity like a knife. In that moment, everyone in the courtroom, jury, spectators, even the defense team, could see the absolute truth in her testimony. When Mitchell suggested that Lily might have invented the story to gain attention or sympathy, she looked directly at him with those wise, serious eyes. "I didn't want anyone to know I was there," she said quietly. "I was scared they'd take me away from Mr. Ryan, but I couldn't let the pretty lady hurt him. My grandma taught me that doing right is more important than being safe." The impact of her words was visible throughout the courtroom. Several jurors wiped their eyes, and even the court reporter paused in her transcription. But Rebecca wasn't finished. As the prosecution rested its case, she made a decision that shocked everyone, including her own attorney. Against all legal advice, she insisted on taking the stand in her own defense. What followed was a performance that revealed the true extent of her narcissism and manipulation. Rather than expressing remorse or attempting to minimize her actions, Rebecca launched into a bitter justification of her crimes. "You want to know the truth?" she said, her mask finally slipping completely. "These men had everything handed to them: money, success, respect, while women like me had to fight for scraps. James Morrison inherited his wealth. David Chen got lucky with tech stocks. Ryan Wilson built his company on ideas he probably stole from smarter people." The courtroom listened in stunned silence as she continued her rant, revealing a worldview twisted by entitlement and rage. "I gave them what they wanted: a beautiful woman who made them feel special. In return, I deserved their wealth. If they were too trusting, too naive to protect themselves, that was their weakness, not my crime." Her attorney tried desperately to stop her testimony, but Rebecca was beyond control. Years of suppressed anger poured out in a torrent of self-justification that destroyed any remaining sympathy the jury might have felt. "And that little brat," she added, pointing directly at Lily, "should have minded her own business. Children should be seen and not heard, especially homeless children with no right to interfere in adult affairs." Judge Thompson had to gavel for order as murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Ryan's hands clenched into fists, his protective instincts screaming at Rebecca's attack on Lily, but Lily herself remained calm, looking at Rebecca with something approaching pity. "She's very angry," she whispered to Ryan after they left the courthouse that day. "Grandma Rose said angry people usually hurt because someone hurt them first." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Rebecca was convicted on all charges: attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy, and multiple counts related to her previous crimes. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole for 15 years. As Rebecca was led away in handcuffs, she maintained her defiant demeanor until the very end. "This isn't justice," she called out. "This is persecution of a woman who refused to be a victim." But her words fell on deaf ears. Justice had been served not through revenge or hatred, but through the simple courage of a little girl who chose to do what was right, even when it was terrifying. Outside the courthouse, as media cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, Ryan lifted Lily into his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Lily nodded, then smiled, the first truly carefree smile he'd seen from her since this ordeal began. "Can we go home now, Mr. Ryan?" "Yes," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Let's go home." 1 year after that fateful October morning, when a desperate little girl emerged from a garage to save a stranger's life, the Wilson mansion had transformed beyond recognition. Where once stood sterile showcases designed to impress business associates, warm living spaces now invited actual living. The minimalist furniture that had dominated every room gave way to comfortable sofas perfect for reading bedtime stories. Lily's artwork covered the refrigerator, crayon drawings of stick figures labeled Daddy Ryan and Lily, that meant more to him than any corporate award he'd ever received. The formal dining room, previously used only for client entertainment, now hosted homework sessions, puzzle competitions, and the occasional food fight that Maria pretended to disapprove of while secretly smiling. But perhaps the most dramatic change was in Ryan himself. The driven executive who once worked 16-hour days now left the office at 5 o'clock sharp, prioritizing soccer practice over conference calls and bedtime stories over earnings reports. His assistant had initially worried about this dramatic shift in priorities, but Wilson Tech's performance had actually improved under his more balanced leadership. Turns out, he confided to his business partner during a rare late-night strategy session, having something more important than work makes you better at work, not worse. The legal proceedings had finally concluded with satisfying resolution. Rebecca received 25 years in federal prison, while Marcus, who had cooperated fully with prosecutors, was sentenced to 8 years for his role in the conspiracy. Both would serve their time far from Seattle, ensuring Lily's safety and peace of mind. More importantly, the adoption proceedings had reached their joyful conclusion. After months of home visits, background checks, and psychological evaluations, Judge Patricia Williams had signed the final papers making Lily officially part of the Wilson family. "It's rare," the judge had commented during the ceremony, "to see such a clear case of a child and parent being meant for each other." On this anniversary morning, exactly 1 year since Lily had run across the lawn shouting warnings about the pretty lady, Ryan had planned a special celebration. He found Lily in the breakfast nook, carefully arranging rainbow sprinkles on pancakes Maria had made in the shape of a heart. "Today's our special day," Lily announced with 7-year-old solemnity. "The day I saved you and you saved me." Ryan smiled, marveling at her ability to see their relationship as mutual rescue rather than one-sided charity. In truth, she was absolutely right. Lily had saved him from far more than Rebecca's murder plot. She'd saved him from a life of lonely success, from relationships built on deception, from the hollow victory of achieving everything except what truly mattered. "I have something for you," Ryan said, producing a small wrapped box from behind his back. Lily's eyes widened with excitement as she carefully removed the ribbon, a skill she'd learned from Ryan, who believed in savoring special moments rather than rushing through them. Inside was a small golden key attached to a delicate chain. "What's it for?" she asked. holding it up to catch the morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows. "Come see," Ryan replied mysteriously, leading her through the French doors, onto the back terrace. There in the corner of the garden where Lily had once hidden in fear, stood the most magnificent treehouse Seattle had ever seen. Built from cedar and glass, it was large enough for 2 people but designed with 7-year-old sensibilities, complete with a rope ladder, telescope for spying on squirrels, and most importantly, a perfect view of the garage where their story had begun. "It's ours," Lily breathed, her voice filled with wonder. "It's ours," Ryan confirmed. "A place where we can always remember how we found each other." They climbed up together, Lily scrambling ahead with the fearless agility of childhood while Ryan followed more carefully, still adjusting to the idea that his expensive suits were meant to be lived in rather than preserved. The treehouse interior was everything a child could imagine. Built-in benches with soft cushions, shelves for books and treasures, and windows positioned to catch both sunrise and sunset. But the most special feature was visible through the main window, a clear view of the garage where a frightened little girl had hidden until courage demanded she reveal herself. "From here, you can always see where we started," Ryan explained, settling beside Lily on the window seat. "But more importantly, you can see all the places we might go." Beyond the garage, the view encompassed Seattle's skyline, the Sound with its ferry boats and sailboats, and the mountains that rose like promises on the horizon. It was a vista of infinite possibility, a perfect metaphor for the life they were building together. "Mr. Ryan," Lily said suddenly, using the formal address she'd never quite abandoned despite his gentle corrections. "Do you think the pretty lady is sorry for what she did?" The question surprised him. Even after everything, Lily's capacity for empathy remained intact, a remarkable resilience that spoke to both her grandmother's influence and her own essential goodness. "I don't know," Ryan answered honestly, "but I hope someday she finds a way to understand that hurting people never solves anything." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up around them. Ferry horns echoed across the water, seagulls called to each other from the roof peaks, and somewhere in the distance, children's laughter drifted from a nearby playground. "I used to think," Ryan said slowly, "that success meant building the biggest company, making the most money, impressing the most people. I spent so many years focused on achieving things that I forgot to build a life worth living." Lily considered, this with the seriousness she brought to all important conversations. "Grandma Rose used to say that things don't make you happy. People do. And doing right makes you proud of yourself even when nobody else knows about it." The wisdom of it struck Ryan with fresh force. Rose Parker, whom he'd never met, had raised a granddaughter capable of risking everything to save a stranger. That kind of moral courage wasn't taught in business schools or corporate seminars. It was cultivated through love, example, and the deep understanding that character mattered more than comfort. "Your grandmother sounds like she was an amazing woman," Ryan said softly. "She was," Lily agreed. "But I think she would have liked you. You take care of people, your employees, Maria, me. Grandma always said that's how you know someone's heart is good." As the morning sun climbed higher, warming their special sanctuary, Ryan reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought them to this moment. A year ago, he'd been preparing to marry a woman who wanted to kill him for money. Today, he was planning a future with a daughter who'd saved his life simply because it was the right thing to do. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent millions on security systems, background checks, and legal protections. But his real salvation had come from a homeless 6-year-old with nothing but courage and moral clarity. "Lily," he said finally, "there's something I want you to always remember. You didn't just save my life that day, you gave me a reason to live it." She looked up at him with those wise, serious eyes that had seen too much sadness but somehow retained their capacity for joy. "Sometimes you have to lose something to gain something better," she said, with the profound simplicity that only children possess. Ryan smiled, remembering how she'd used almost exactly those words a year ago. His empty mansion had been filled with laughter. His sterile success had been transformed into meaningful purpose. His lonely achievement had become shared adventure. Most remarkably, his carefully controlled life had been beautifully disrupted. by spontaneity, wonder, and the daily chaos of raising a child who approached each day as a new opportunity for discovery. "Ready for our first official day as the Wilson family?" he asked, standing and offering his hand. Lily jumped up eagerly, already planning adventures in their new treehouse, already thinking about tomorrow's possibilities rather than yesterday's fears. "Ready," she declared with a smile that could power the entire city. And as they climbed down from their elevated sanctuary into the garden below, both of them understood that while their story had begun with danger and deception, it would continue with love, laughter, and the unshakable bond between a man who'd learned that family was more valuable than fortune and a little girl who'd discovered that courage could create its own kind of magic. The garage stood unchanged in the morning light, a silent witness to the miracle that had unfolded within its walls. But everything else, their hearts, their home, their hopes for the future, had been transformed by the simple recognition that sometimes the most important family members arrive in the most unexpected ways. In the distance, church bells chimed the hour, and Ryan Wilson and his daughter Lily headed inside for breakfast, their shadows intertwining on the path like the lives that had found each other against all odds and chosen, despite every reason for fear, to build something beautiful, together.